I'm going to start off with basic introductions. I'm going to invite each of the panelists out here, take 30 seconds to a minute to really talk about their journey in sustainability, who they are, right? And in general, I mean, try to pin them down. What's the one garment that they have in their wardrobe which is like sustainable, right? And they love. I'm going to start off with Darshana. Introducing yourself, 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah. And
Hello, good evening everyone. Okay, my 30 seconds start now. So, I have been with Reliance brands and Latin Fashion Week for the past 5 years, and I'm looking after their sustainability initiatives. But really the pivot to sustainability started back in 2016 when I was doing retail mainstream. So out of 16 years of whatever fashion and retail I've done, I think almost a decade has gone now into championing sustainability. Started with understanding what it is. Funnily, I was watching Netflix and chilling, and I came across the True Cost documentary, and I then realized I was shocked that, oh my god, it's a really massive problem. That's when I sort of decided that, okay, I'm no longer going to be part of the problem, but part of the solution. And then that journey went on. I started as an entrepreneur to begin with. I was volunteering with Fashion Revolution for a very long time. And in the last 5 years have been really interesting because I got a platform like Latin Fashion Week to really have thought leadership conversations, to really work with the who's who in the industry. I've had the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to work with everybody on this panel. So I feel really grateful for that. And each one of them has an amazing story. My 30 seconds are up, so that's me. Thank you.
Thanks. Please.
That's going to be tough to follow. My name is Ekta. I have had different stages in my career. I've been in fashion for roughly 30 years now. I'm touching 50, so it's a fair length of time. I started off as a designer. I moved into media, mainstream, fast fashion, luxury, everything. Started reading up about what was a miss about the industry. Chose to step away from mainstream publications, went freelance. Commercial gigs to pay my bills. But on a personal level, I started exploring what conscious style means for me. I'm a little nervous about saying sustainability very easily because it's too much of an umbrella term and very confusing. So my personal voice is very explorative, and that's what I do, and I think that's why I'm sitting here perhaps. And if I can lend some of those personal learnings into my professional space, I try with every dialogue that's possible. So slow and steady is how I do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ashay.
Hi, I'm Ashay. I'm the CEO and founder of Thaely. Thaely is a vegan and sustainable sneaker brand, and we make shoes from waste plastic bags and plastic bottles. Basically, every component that we use in the shoe is either 100% recycled, or it's biodegradable, or it can be recycled. So we've thought of every little component from the actual product to the packaging to how we make the shoes itself. So I started Thaely in July of 2021, so it's been about 4 years now. And was there another question, which was what?
I'm going to bring it back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So hello everybody, my name is Kaveri and I'm the founder of the brand Kaveri, which is an all-limited brand. I started this brand without any plan. It all started with a very personal reason, because I wanted to find nice women clothes that would fit me. And so I started with 3 tailors in my backyard, and I just started making clothes that would fit different body types. And people ask me, why do I work only with women? And it's very simple. I work with women because I love it, and I think it's the perfect fabric for everybody. It can be worn in summer and in winter. And yes, so that's who I am. My name is Kaveri,
And the same question is up here for you. What's your favorite garment, or what's something sustainable in your...
That's a very difficult question. It's like asking who's your favorite child. You have many different garments that are favorite to you for different occasions. But what I find is I always go back. I go back to clothes that make me feel good, make me feel confident, make me feel secure, make me feel protected. And that's what I try to bring in my designs, clothes that empower you. And when something that I'm wearing today is one of my favorites, and I chose to wear it today because it's 10 years old. And that's what we're talking about, slow fashion and garments that last, garments of value, but we'll get to that later.
Absolutely. Ashay, what about you? Maybe an emotional connect with some garment. Your first sneaker, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my first sneakers. The first cool sneakers, I would say. So I had these like pair of Air Force Ones, Nike Air Force Ones, and they were like the high tops, which are a little more rare than the ones that we get. So yeah, I still have those. I don't know if I can wear them as such anymore, but I can still keep them. I'll wear them someday.
Sure.
Yeah, but apart from that, like everything in my wardrobe is, somewhat sustainable, second-hand, or it's like a gift. So, yeah.
I've made it, I think, my identity, or it's become my identity. I repeat a lot of my clothes, and I think Instagram is a platform where you don't repeat clothes. So I just started it off as a joke, and now it's become my identity. So now I feel the pressure to repeat clothes. Just like people feel the pressure to not repeat clothes. I'm like,
you're a victim of your success.
Yeah, literally. So like, what you got to do today? But it's fun. It's taken the stress out of thinking of what to wear. What I'm wearing is a brand I've learned a lot from, and I wish for everyone to go back home and read up about them. They're called 1111. They're Indian, and in my limited exposure, they're probably the most sustainable brand that I have come across in the country and perhaps also in the world. But again, like I said, it's my limited exposure to change. And what I love about them is that those are not just biodegradable because they only use natural dyes and many other things, but they're compostable. It's a completely different ballgame. They nourish the soil, they decompose it. So that is something very few brands can bring home. So I love it.
They also have a very strong transparency. They started something like those NFC tags where you could scan and you could know where the crop is grown and etc. Well, I have also become a very chronic outfit repeater. I love it. I make it a point to wear a particular jacket of sorts, to wear it every fashion week, because at fashion week you are obviously not supposed to repeat, but I do. The designer is fed up of me wearing it every season, and she comes to me every season, I have to make new clothes for you, and I don't. But I think this particular jacket has an interesting story. So there was Gajare who used to do what I do before I joined. He decided to take sannyas in a sense and learn more about spirituality. And this particular jacket, which I assume was his, was lying in a drawer that I took over from him. And I just sent him a picture one day and said, this is mine now. This is from a brand called Woodridge, a upcycled textile waste. So I think this is probably a third or fourth life for this particular jacket. And it's so comfortable, it's unisex, I wear it on pants, on dresses, on skirts. It's amazing, so yeah.
Fantastic. All I can say for myself is that my kids tell me, when I take out a garment from the cupboard and they're like, Papa, how old is that? Is it older than me, or is it like, is it from when? After I was born. So that's the kind of love that I have for clothes. I usually don't throw clothes away. I wear them out. And yeah, I enjoy that. And I think that speaks a lot from the people who are there on the panel. And I just want to connect this to something that just came up in one of the conversations. In terms of, I believe it was Julie was mentioning, right, that they had a lot of conversations. In fact, yesterday, wow, what happened there?
Much better.
Much better. Amazing, yeah. Fantastic, thank you, Julie. So she was mentioning, right, speaking to people, and there being this thought or this conversation point that the market in India for sustainable fashion is kind of limited. And yes, that is true, but there is a nuance to that, right? The Indian market is huge, man. Come on, I mean, we have like tons and tons of businesses and brands existing for years and years, right? They may not be billion-dollar businesses, but they are lifestyle businesses, as we call them in our startup lives, doing pretty well, right? And the brands doing what they do for the joy that they bring to the entrepreneur and to the people who buy them, right? So that speaks a lot about this thing about India as a culture. Maybe I'm talking through my hat or whatever. This is what I believe, right? That this is who we are, right? So in a certain way, and this is also something that came up. A lot of fashion, a lot of slow fashion, a lot of sustainability is really just taking a pause and just realizing we've been doing this, right? I mean, like we've been doing this for some time, and let's just enjoy it, right? Let's not get caught up in the latest whatever is just that we see being pushed to our digital screens. And so that's something that definitely comes to my mind. But yeah, moving the conversation along, the big picture, right? What is sustainability in fashion, right? I think that is just such a huge question, like Kaveri mentioned out here, right? I mean, how do you define this strange thing called sustainability, right? Every brand has their own interpretation of it. Well, we're going to ask them, right? So I'm going to start off with Darshana. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a very specific question for you. And this is because she has like this bird's eye view, right? She's looking at so many brands going through Acme Fashion Week. It's a very, I would say, very beautiful vantage point to see the flow of fashion, as if I can call it that, right? So, and I would love for you to share about what are the biggest misconceptions that people have about sustainability, right? And this is the process of inversion, as we call it, right? Where you define something not by defining it precisely, but by really talking about what it is not, right? So, for you. You thought this was going to be easy?
Yeah, I thought so. It's a little controversial, if I may say so, because the lines are very blurred. They are sometimes overlapping as well. We have a day dedicated at Fashion Week called the Sustainable Fashion Day. Okay. Now, what happens is, if you are a designer who's showcasing on SFD/Sustainable Fashion Day, you're expected to do everything right. You cannot go wrong. And then the media and the buyers and the entire ecosystem is going to expect the absolute best from you. But it's extremely difficult to do everything right. And there are a lot of other designers who are not doing a lot of things, are perhaps not even calling themselves sustainable, responsible, recyclable, or whatever. But they are perhaps doing a lot of things right because it's extremely indigenous to Indians as designers, as producers, as manufacturers, as business owners to do things in a certain way. Natural fibers and natural dye is not an alien concept for us. We intrinsically did only that. But now, just because as a label I am not doing all the 10 things, I am scared to even tell the world that I am sustainable in one way or the other. So I think that we need to sort of normalize this conversation to say that yes, it's not the responsibility for a handful of brands to do things right. And maybe we need to be a little inclusive to say that, hey, I'm doing 5 things out of 10, but I'm learning. And every season or with every collection, I'm going to add one more element and do a little better. Now, the flip side to that is something called as greenwashing. Right? So we say, okay, fine, we will hug everybody and we say, tum bhi sahi kar rahe ho, tum bhi sahi kar rahe ho, sorry, you're also doing great, you're also all great. But then there is greenwashing. So it's really very confusing where we sit right now to really define how good or bad or in which direction that we're going. But I'm just, I think, thankful to see this conversation happening more and more. But I'm also upset at the same time. We were just talking that I think she's been talking about this for 20 years, I've been talking about this for 10 years. And the needle is really moving very slowly. So I think it's time to also to sort of dig and understand what are the roadblocks and why are we not able to move that needle at a certain pace. I also had the opportunity, please stop me whenever because I get
is important. And this is a hugely critical point, right? Please continue.
So within my role, I also have the opportunity to actually work with mainstream retail brands. So we run a program called SURE, it is an acronym for Sustainable Resolution. So we have 16 of India's mainstream retail brands, from your Spiker to Deepa, Device, Bestseller, etc., who've taken a voluntary commitment to become more sustainable in the way they function. We launched this back in 2019, and then COVID hit, and we all hit a roadblock. And once business started, coming to pace again, every business's first priority was to get the business back. So the narrative of sustainability is always optional. Then comes the narrative of policy and regulation. Do we really need the regulation? So the question I think everybody needs to ask as an entrepreneur, as a designer, as a CEO is, do we need this set of watchdogs who need to constantly look at us and tell us to do the right things, or are we woke enough, well-read enough, well-traveled enough to actually experience climate change day in, day out, and to really take that on as a responsibility for humanity? And I feel really surprised, not to point fingers, but especially people who have kids. I don't have 2 dogs, they are kids, but parents especially see that there are no longer any playgrounds for their kids to go. And even then, why are we not waking up? Why are we not activists in our individual roles? And you do not need a position of power for that. You do not need a title for it. It's really about going out, taking your own water bottle wherever you go, and just making a difference. I don't know if it's very preachy, but, and I don't know if I answer your question, but yeah.
But I appreciate your point, right? In terms of just this whole notion for us to really prove ourselves as being, doing the right thing. Just because we say we are sustainable, we are supposed to then have daily standards or make sure that even a polybag is like compostable and so on and so forth, right? And being called out on that. So these are really valid points, and that basically acts as a barrier to a lot of people who may be doing like you said, 5 out of 10, but they don't then want to go the rest 5. They don't want to go 6, 7, 8, 9 because they are just not seeing the value there, or they're just facing too much headwind, or for whatever. I don't know. Right? So great point. Absolutely. I'm going to bring Kaveri out here. Kaveri, in your brand's journey, how do you define sustainability?
Okay, so I have to start off by saying that I hate to call myself a sustainable brand.
I think that deserves it. Yeah. Because we should all really do that, right? We should all be a brand rather than just be a sustainable brand. Please go for it.
So why I hate to call myself a sustainable brand? Because if I do that, I feel like a fraud. Because, like you said, there are many things that one has to do to label yourself or call yourself a sustainable brand. When I was speaking to Julie on the phone, I was telling her that and what you also said, like as Indians, it's actually just, we're born with it. We see it, we've grown up with it. And just the fact to be a little bit more aware, it comes very naturally to us. So I'm labeled, and I've been part of the Latvia Fashion Week Sustainable Day. I'm appreciated as a sustainable brand. I think primarily because of the materials I use. We are, like I said, a linen brand, and that is one of the most environmentally friendly fabrics. Also the kind of work we do, which is, we love everything that's handcrafted. And when we talk about slow fashion, we are a slow fashion brand, and for us, that creativity, to create something by hand, not to go into digital printing, it breaks my heart when I see beautiful techniques like what Lalchand uses, our natural hand techniques like Bandhani and Ekta being converted into digital prints, and we love them, and people are buying them because they look beautiful, but it's a digital print. So, what was the question?
Your brand's journey.
My brand's journey.
Specifically your thoughts, your experiences, how you built it up.
So, yes, as a brand, we don't use any synthetic or polyester fabrics. We use everything, all our fabrics are natural fibers, cottons and linens mainly. And yes, we do use biodegradable plastic bags because when this whole movement of say no to plastic came about, I just couldn't get myself to use those crispy, shiny plastic bags. And yes, nowadays you can, and it was very expensive earlier in India to get biodegradable plastic bags. And then I was also wondering whether it was really biodegradable. And I remember when I ordered 20,000 plastic bags, the supplier said, please use them fast because they will biodegrade in 6 months.
Exactly.
And I was like, really? Absolutely. I was actually excited to hear that because I wanted to place a bigger order so I get a better bulk price. And he said, are you going to use these many bags? Because they will, and I was very happy to hear that they actually are going to biodegrade. I can just store them. So yes, we do certain practices. I think they're very simple things. I'm known as sustainable because of the fabrics. I do use biodegradable plastic bags. For me, sustainability is many different things. It's also the vendors we work with. I only, as a principal, work with vendors who are environmentally aware and conscious. So our biggest supplier is our fabric supplier. So I work with a mill that is, because they export to Europe, so they have got the required certification. And very simple things like we do our own in-house hand printing. So we make sure we process the water before it's let down into the earth. So at least I know where my fabric is coming from, that's taken care of. So in the factory, we process our printing, the chemical water that we use for printing and dyeing in-house, that's the process before it's let out. Another complaint I get from my clients is that our garments, we also take pride in the way we manufacture, and we encourage customers to buy less and choose well and buy clothes that last. And the complaint I get is that Kaveri, your clothes don't ever get old, as with the 10-year-old outfit I'm wearing today. And we actually encourage them to send it back to us, which we then upcycle. And I'm very excited, I'm happy. These little things excite me, that these old garments that customers send back to us are then sent to this one organization run by a friend of mine in rural Tamil Nadu, where the garments are upcycled into pouches, cushion covers, little soft toys, which we then send to the customers or just distribute it. So we do a little bit of upcycling. Another very, very important aspect of sustainability for me is social sustainability, which is the team. The people who were part of the team and the family, the work environment, the recognition, the love and importance. We do a birthday celebration every month. You know, I have people, so everybody whose birthdays in that month comes and cuts a cake. So I can't do too many birthdays, so we do once a month, and it's a little party. Really, my team is my heart, and I'm proud to say that when I started 12 years ago, I still have that same original core team. We have a picture in my office, which was just us, like 9 of us who was in my backyard, and now we're a team of 120. And for me, that's most important. And I have people who have joined me, and this was a young boy who just joined, and then he's been 12 years, he's got married, he's had a baby, so I went for his wedding, when the baby was born, I went for the function. So social sustainability is huge for me personally, and of course then extending it to the community. So I think that's very important, where I've grown to a point where I can make a little bit of a difference. So community building I support is one organization. It's a small one, but I chose to do a small thing where I can just be involved. And I used to always question that, how much of a difference are we making? I mean, the problem is huge. And I've come to realize, and I've told myself that even if the difference doesn't happen now, maybe what we are doing will make a difference in the following generation, for our next generation. So while the problem is big, I think if we all did our little bit, it can make a difference.
Love that. Absolutely. beautiful words. That essentially just highlights this point. All this what you said touched hearts for sure. Then I'm the guy who's like this greedy guy, right? The guy who's one opportunity there, one opportunity there. So I don't know how many people you realize down there in the audience, but a lot of those specific areas that she spoke about are essentially waiting to be disrupted by startups. And those are business opportunities for all of us, right? Pick any one, and India as a country is just waiting for that to be disrupted, right? And opportunities to be made out of it, right? The community bit, I'm just going to use that as an example, right? How many businesses today really leverage their own networks and help their own employees get insurance? And I'm not talking about the ESI insurance that is mandatory, right? I'm talking about just medically health insurance kind of stuff, which is really cheap if you really help them. And there's this huge gap in terms of them really not having those data points, and you really just connecting up those dots, and it's a couple of $100 to you, right, over a year. But then it's like it's a habit that they form, and it's a lifesaver for them, right? And those are like, again, it's very difficult to have these opportunities come to businesses. There's an opportunity there for a business to do that, right? Go Digit goes after it. There's a huge opportunity for all businesses, like textile especially. So, separate conversation, but I do want to bring this back to Ekta, right? For the word on this, right? The larger whole picture in terms of media, right? Fashion narratives. How have you seen this whole conversation shaping over the years? What have you seen happen?
I've been part of the media scene in and out, I would say 2008 to about 2017. Like that was my core time. I was with India Today as a group with Harper's Bazaar and the Times of India group with Rajani. And of course I've worked on cinema, like film, and now I continue to be part of some independent communication. I feel like when I started off, the awareness was limited. There's a lot more awareness. It's gone from the fringe to being part of like the middle of the book, as we say, you're designing. Of course, today everything is digital, so I'm not going to look at it in terms of a book, but it's very much in the central space. And while I think that those conversations have now gone mainstream and the word has become extremely popular, I think it comes back to what we were discussing. Like, we've been seeing this conversation build over a decade or so, but there are still very few players, and the players that can actually make a bigger difference are not moving more impactfully enough, is my reading of the situation. So yes, the conversation in media has taken on its role, but is business and government policy complementing the coverage that media, or the importance that media is giving it?
Yeah.
Debatable.
It's a very, very beautiful point that you illustrate, right? That it's mainstream, it's there, and yet it's not there really, right? Because of the support that it needs to, it deserves to get.
I find many people ask me what they should do, where they should go, how they should research. But the point is, it's not very nice to feel like the onus of this responsibility is falling upon the consumer.
Absolutely.
And I really think that this is something very strange, that individuals are carrying this guilt and government and corporations aren't. So I have a huge issue with entrepreneurship on this front.
Fantastic.
The bigger companies that have the might
100%.
and the profit margins.
Absolutely, because they drive the agenda, right? And they are essentially consumers.
So I think media is doing its part. Are other players in society doing their part? We can have a debate on that.
Fantastic. And on that point, I want to move the conversation further, right? In terms of, okay, how do we bridge this gap? Right? The gap that we've all talked about. Right? So, and I want to bring this to Ashay out here, right? I mean, fast fashion, let's face it, right? It's cheap, it's easily available, right? Can sustainable fashion ever really truly compete? Right? And just to sort of bring this home to you specifically, right? Your sneakers are cool. I love them. I love the time that I saw them at CDC when you were part, right? how do you communicate that, right? How do you make sustainability so cool for consumers?
See, I think the first question where you said, can sustainable fashion compete with fast fashion? I think it's impossible. Just to give you an example, like all these other new homegrown sneaker brands or like some other sneaker brands that have been in India for a very long time, they have absolutely no idea what fabrics go into their shoes or like what is, what certain components are made out of. All they do is basically send one sketch to the factory. Because we share measurements, so I know what they are, right?
Totally.
So they send that what we call a tech pack, right? And it just mentions, okay, use this pantone, use this pantone shape for each of the different panels, and that's about it. Where the fabric comes from, where the soles are, made, what it's made out of is all secondary. So it's all about like, what is the price? What is the cheapest possible option you can get for this particular thing? So it's very easy for them. They work with fabrics that are already available in the market and things like that. For us, every time I have to make a new collection, I have to basically like invent a whole new like technique, basically, and it just development takes much longer for us than actually like testing it out and then eventually getting it to market takes even more longer. So we can't do fast fashion. Like recently we made 30 new colorways for one of our distributors in Europe, and that took us like a year. And then for a regular brand that might just be like, I don't know, like 2-3 months of sampling at the most. So it's basically impossible to compete. And then the second part was how to make sustainability cool. I think in India, to make it cool, you also have to make it accessible. Like I think cool is something that would just happen if people see enough people wearing it. Cool people wearing it, I guess. It happens automatically. You just have to make good designs and things like that. But I think you also have to make it accessible. For us, that was a challenge initially. Our shoes started at 8,000 rupees, which is, not very accessible in India. Which is why our shoes were very rare outside India. So now, finally, after like being in business for 4 years, now we're able to make things much cheaper. We're not really compromising on the material or the sustainability. We just reach the scale to sort of order in bulk, order higher volumes and things like that. And now we finally we got to a point where we can reduce the price by half, not the exact same shoe, but other shoes for basically half the price. So I guess that is one. And then apart from that, I would say I wouldn't say like being very trend focused, but then still sort of being trendy, or at least aesthetically pleasing. I've seen a lot of sustainable, at least footwear brands that make shoes that are not very nice looking, and they also don't last. There's a lot of sustainable leather options that are made from some cool materials and all of that, but none of them really work for shoes because there's so much flexibility and durability that's needed for footwear. So they basically just fall apart and things like that. So that's
Spoken. Yeah, please.
I'm really glad you brought the cool quotient in, and I think you did define cool in sustainability in when you started. Through Fashion Week, through Circular Design Challenge, that entire narrative shifting from you being okay for a sustainable garment to look a certain way has also changed. We were used to looking at earthy tones, boring silhouettes, very typical narrative as sustainable, and people bought that narrative for a very expensive price point. But I think we've passed that, and design is really taking center stage, where design is becoming a solution, and whether it merges with technology or new materials or upcycling or whatever that is, but we can no longer discount design. If you are making a stunning product, at no point in time can you sell a product to anybody only because it is conscious or responsible. It has to be stunning, and only then can somebody even choose that over a Zara, for the lack of a better example. But yeah, just wanted to add that. And I think through Circular Design Challenge, we've been able to sort of see the journeys of so many amazing designers who are using design as a tool to address so many waste issues, circularity issues, and stunning products are coming out of it. So yeah, just want to add that.
No, I'm going to in fact add that to that more to your plate, right? So in terms of not just the design element, but enough for that, it's also the price sensitivity part of it, right? The affordability aspect of it, right? In terms of how it plays into the whole sustainability conversation. Because that's another thing that has always been gone on, that if it's sustainable, it's priced at a premium. It's like, how if it's organic, it's like more expensive. And how does that really come into play as we want to bring slow fashion, and we want to bring sustainable fashion, or as we want to bring the true fashion?
See, simply put, it's a matter of supply and demand, very light base level. You demand more, the prices reduce, all of this becomes more affordable. But the real question to ask here is, the price that you're being paid, so-called, which is affordable, is that the real deserved price for that product? I think we need to chase that conversation right there at that narrative. If I'm buying a t-shirt worth $9.99, that's not a fair price in any world. So I think we need to unravel that and see what is the fair price for that product, and then recalibrate the entire pricing structure and put the real cost in the real place. That t-shirt will not cost $9.99 in any world. So that's one. So there's supply and demand, there is just understanding what right price is. And also truly it's about a mindset change. All of this is behavior change. All of this is a lot of psychology, a lot of mindfulness. We're really talking about consuming less. We're really talking about degrowth as a necessity now. We do not need to produce so much. There are enough books that speak about degrowth, have scientific and economist-based data and evidence to say that GDP is not the answer to all our problems. We have enough money in this world that will solve for pollution, for hunger, for poverty, whatever, but we are just not using the money in the right place. So it is about behavior change, it is about aligning our values, and that's when we're going to solve this problem. All of this is doable. All of this is doable. There is enough money, there are enough billionaires, there are enough millionaires, everybody's making money, but the money is not being distributed in the right place in the value chain where it deserves to be.
I could just see the hashtag fashion revolution going up there. So absolutely spot on, right? But then I want to add a little bit to that, right? And what I want to present to you, right? Present to you here out here is that it's like, rather than saying that, we have all the money, I think what is missing really is, and I link it back to what LSE is doing, right? Is the business model, right? In terms of, okay, how do we really incentivize the appropriate behavior, right? How do we really ensure that the value that is flowing, or the value that is being added, or the value that is being created, right, is the one that is recognized by the market and is also being valued by the market. So those are like interesting layers that I think, and this is something that we have seen at CDC in terms of, okay, ultimately when businesses really come to CDC or when they come to LSE, I think one of the biggest challenges really out there is really laying out and then sort of breaking it down and putting it back together as a business model, right, in terms of just the flow, right? And that obviously brings about sustainability in itself for the business, right? Because it's got to survive and thrive over the years. So I also want to allude to what Ashay just said, right? In terms of how can fast fashion really compete with slow fashion? How can slow compete with fast? It's really a matter of redrawing the frame of reference, right? Just really changing it and putting yourself in a completely different frame. So love that, love those interesting points coming out there. I want to take this to Kaveri for a minute. And in terms of what has been sort of your biggest challenge, right, over your journey in terms of taking this mainstream.
Well, I think the main thing is boils down to price. So we take a lot of pain and effort and pride in what we do, and it comes at a cost. It's very simple, much easier and cheaper for us to buy polyester fabric at 80, 100 rupees a meter, cut and stitch, doing things. It's to try and make the customer understand the value and the work and the effort that goes into making that product. But I mean, I do not compromise on that. And I also believe, when you're talking about sustainable clothes and what they should look like, I think we must look at these trends and fads versus good design. You have good design that endures. It's not time specific, it's not season specific. And that's what I strive to do. I don't follow fashion trends. I create things that I feel for that moment works. So the challenge has been making the customers understand what goes into the product, and so it's not expensive, it's costly, right? There is a cost, there is the time, there is the effort, there is the workmanship that goes into it. So that's been the biggest challenge. Because I have people saying, "Isme to kya hai? Kya kaam hai?" I'm like, look at it. And I take it very personally. I said, if you can't see it, it's okay. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is so important, right, in terms of just the communication aspect of it, right? So absolutely the point you can take. I'm going to bring this to Ekta right now. Ekta, again, just bringing to bear your experience again. Now, since you mentioned that you have that, right? So yeah, and I relate to a lot in terms of what you said, right? So I'm going to ask you this: for brands, right, sustainable brands who are struggling with this pressure to drop new collections, right? Because lean fashion, we move in cycles. We have this, happening every season. We need new collection and so on and so forth, right? What advice would you suggest? What do you sort of, how do you want them to think about this in terms of framing it, in terms of navigating this?
I'm not sure there's one particular answer for all brands, because again, the umbrella term of sustainability, people are doing very different things. The time that their supply chain takes for different products is so different versus a more standardized, industrialized, scaled up system that the world, the big giants of the world are used to, where you can really calculate everything down to the micro minute. Most of the more conscious brands don't have standardized back-end processes. It just depends on what they're doing. So I don't think there's one size that fits all. I think I've seen a few people do different things, and you've got to pick and choose what works for your supply chain and your process. And I think that approach and that common sense also needs to be appreciated, and common sense is not usually appreciated. So everyone wants the black and white answer to everything, unfortunately, and we just don't have that. So if somebody can do customized pieces and their customer can be patient while they take 2 months to deliver the piece to them, that is a solution. If somebody can pay a higher price as a patron, a commercial patron, because even a lot of the older arts in Australia and India require patronage. Today the consumer is the patron. So if you're affluent, can you support a well-designed, conscious brand? I mean, you can buy anything you want, but are you using your wealth in creating a movement or not? So I think you have to really look at, I mean, I cannot expect a person who earns 25,000 rupees a month to think about sustainability when we're flooding them with imagery of aspiration, and all they want is a pair of jeans to get their foot into a door.
Yeah.
So there is an organized sector, there is a disorganized sector. Polyester is driving trends for a lot of the aspirational youth that are below a certain socioeconomic line. Can I generalize the same answers for different people and different aspirations? It's extremely difficult. I think what anyone who's genuinely interested in being part of solutions that benefit society have to look at what they can bring to the table and do it with as much intent and honesty as possible. And there will be many solutions, and we have to embrace many of them by seeing that they can put their money where their mouth is and their intention where their product is.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Play to your strengths. Right? And yeah.
Transparency, honesty, communication, and whatever you're doing and you know you're doing it well. Today, communication tools have just gotten better and better, and we have to use the strength of that to put your message out there, because there are people who are interested, but it can be quite lost in the noise of social media. So that's the challenge.
I also realize I've been monopolizing the conversation and I've probably not paid attention at all to this part of the audience. So yeah, I'm going to be a gracious moderator, and I'm going to invite you people to really please put up your hands and ask questions of the panel. So, and I know it might come as just as a sudden, and I'm more than happy to pick people up. Right? So don't make me do that. I would really invite questions from the audience. Please go for it. Yeah, starting from here, and then I'll come to you, sir. Please, ma'am.
My name is Leanne. You talk about sustainable materials. What are the challenges in sourcing sustainable trims in particular? Because materials we understand, linen, cotton and such, but there's so many other components within fashion.
Trims. Whoever wants to do it, yeah.
The desires. Yep.
Yeah, so we do use polyester thread. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. We do try and use cotton threads as much as possible. But you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing it to my notice. I hadn't really thought about that. So I do use polyester threads in my garments. But in terms of the laces and other things, I try to stick with cottons, crochets, and not use polyester threads. And that's a personal choice as a brand that we make. And it really doesn't go with the rest of my garments. And we naturally gravitate towards. But in India we can source. You can get a lot of natural fiber trims. There will be, yes, the runner of the zipper. I don't think I can source zippers with a cotton, the band, the cloth band that goes on the side of the zipper. But thank you for giving me something to think about. But it is fairly simpler in India to source for me, and also the kind of trims that I do use in my garments are generally more sustainable.
Thank you for that.
Just in terms of zippers, etc., YKK is one of the biggest suppliers of zippers, and they have also started doing recycled metal. I didn't really start. Sorry. So YKK is doing a lot of recycled metal, recycled plastic zippers. There are also alternatives to buttons and fasteners that are either recycled materials or coconut and other things. So there are options. It's not that there aren't. They're obviously expensive. They obviously have a longer lead time. So yeah.
Thank you. The gentleman here, I'll come back to you. Yeah, go for it.
Darshana, we are just to understand the business and work and investor. So, question is to Aditya and others as well. 2 points. I want to ask about your point of how did you get about exporting? Because you started just 4 years ago and you already started exporting, and how that has helped you to scale up, and therefore you said you were able to bring down the cost.
So it's Ashay, it's not Aditya.
Sorry, I said yes.
Any talent? It's not working. That tells you the panel went on for too long, right?
Yeah, okay. So, see, we had no choice but to export, because I knew that the price that we started at $100, which was 8,000 rupees at the time, it's a lot more. But I knew when I started that, okay, this is the price that I can sell it at, and I'm not going to have a choice but to export. Right? So at first we were mostly going in B2C, selling on our website all across the world in things like that. And then now we have certain distributors in different regions. How we did that was all organic. Honestly, we didn't do any trade fairs or anything. It was just, I would say, luck. There were people who saw our ads, online basically, because our ad targeting is very specific, and so we do very specific cities in countries where we know that people are, let's say there's the highest population concentrated on vegan, so people in that particular region, or there's people who are, for example, specialty coffee, people are who are willing to sort of, buy stuff that's sustainable and things like that, and they are vegan. So people like that, they saw our ads, and then luckily some of them were distributors or retailers, so they reached out to us. Apart from that, one good thing about us was, so I spent a lot of time in Dubai. I actually started the company while I was still in Dubai, and so that gave me access to a bunch of stores in Dubai. And Dubai is a great place for layovers and things like that. So there's a lot of people who are like, let's say, going to trade fairs from Europe to China, and back and forth. They stop in Dubai, and then they go see all the stores in Dubai, right? They saw a bunch of stores. They looked at, in leather shoes in Dubai, like the biggest store in the world. And then that concept store, which is in Mall of Emirates, it's also like one of the biggest ones. So yeah, that's how we basically started exporting. We had no choice. But now we're not, at least we're not exporting as much because it's become a lot more expensive to ship worldwide. To ship one shoe from India to America is 2,300 rupees. People are spoiled with like free shipping and same day delivery and things like that. We can't compete with that, right? So yeah, it's now we're sort of focusing on India, but reducing pricing.
And discussing the fact that their storytelling is extremely strong. The way they narrate what the innovation is and what is, I think that's also been a very, very big token. He's just humble.
Yeah, he is true entrepreneur, right? Yeah.
I'd also like to add, said it 2-3 times, that luckily.
Yeah.
It's your product.
No, I mean, I see being in the right place, at the right
Sure,
time
sure,
is
but
very important.
Even if you're in the right place at the right time, it's what?
Yeah, I mean, see, I feel like the product has to be good now. It has to be good. If you can't make a shit product, then be in business. So that's just a given now.
Yeah, but sadly, there are many people doing it.
Yeah, shit product. Please, yes sir, and then I'll come to you later.
One more question. That's okay. Then please go ahead and stop this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to please share one more question, and then you think that I can find you, which is
Absolutely. So please go for it.
See, thank you guys for giving us such a great overview. I don't come from this industry, so I know it about. So I'd like to ask, Ekta, of course I know you, but how do you rather situate sustainable fashion in a sustainable life that you may live, that you think can work better holistically? Where we've talked about, of course, all these wonderful things that you're doing and thinking of, but how does it become a part of life?
I can try. I don't know. I can probably speak a little bit from my own personal experience rather than generalize for people. I don't think any real change happens unless you start changing inside yourself. And somewhere your value systems have to be looked into. And until you come to that point, and people will find their own way to that point, I don't know how you could rush it. Unfortunately, in a world that is measured by GDPs, the only value system that seems to count is money. But when you compare the global mental health situation with the kind of money that is now easily available in the world, very easily, actually, she's spoken about it, there is enough research to indicate that there is a max out point after which money will not get you happiness. And if at that point you don't introspect into your value systems and start making those changes, I don't know if you can actually make that shift. So I feel like up to a point you can push it. And somewhere you have to really start introspecting into your value systems and develop more of them outside of money. I'm not saying it's not important, I'm just saying it can't be the only value system that drives your sense of self-worth. So things money can buy versus what you are able to create with family, with time out. And I will say something controversial perhaps.
We need that. I also have something controversial.
We have leaders in the business world who want us to work 80 hours a day and 90 hours a day. And I think that, you know, to set one common yardstick for 8.5 billion people, not knowing the diversity of body types, of resources, of mental capacities and capabilities, and making such generic, broad sweeping statements is so socially irresponsible. It's staggering to think of the people who make these statements, you know, I mean, with the exposure they have in life. How do you just blanket an entire population with one statement?
So you had said, how do we make sustainable fashion choices? How do we make our lives with regard to fashion more sustainable? Stop buying fast fashion. That's it. Buy clothes that buy natural materials, go for slow fashion, buy less. And I love that you guys have made it a mission to repeat and be proud of it. Please, let's just take away this thing that we're being judged or we're being valued for what we're wearing. Especially for women, it's so stressful when we stand in front of the closet and we have a function to go to or an event to attend. And this is what's come. A lot of the direction of my brand is guided by a lot of personal dilemmas, personal battles, personal trauma. When we stand in front of our closet and say, as women, I'm only talking from a women's man now, women's point of view, when we stand in front of our closet and say, I have nothing to wear. I mean, we're looking at a closet full of clothes. Of course we have something to wear. But what it means is, I don't have anything that's going to make me feel powerful, confident, and when I enter that event, for that particular, what am I going to wear that's going to make me walk into that room with confidence, without fear? When I walk into a room full of other women at a lunch party or at home, when I have to make a presentation at work, what is it that I'm going to wear that will make me feel good? So that's what my brand is built on. And I think if we can drop that, where we can say, you know what, I'm going to wear clothes that are not are going to make me look good from the outside, but are going to make me feel good from the inside. That will make a huge difference in your buying choices. And one thing I'm going to tell everybody, let's stop buying fast fashion, which is 100% polyester, which is cheap. Invest, and that will last only 2 or 3 or 4 wears. Invest in a piece of clothing that has so much more value because of the way it's been produced, and will last longer at the end of the day.
Sorry, can I just add?
So in some ways, we're old friends, so I can say this, and we will be having this conversation casually. I'm not completely in agreement with stopping fast fashion because, again, like I said, there is an entire population of socio-economic people who use style as a tool of social equity to get many doors to open, and it is social currency. I do not know that we can actually leave the price tag to be that high and give the advantage of that social equity just to a certain group of people who can access that in a world that's trying to be inclusive in a social space as well. So I think that it's more complicated than that, more nuanced than that. I feel like people who need to access fast fashion because they cannot afford sustainable fashion and still want to use it for expression or social mobility will do it. but can we take the pressure off, like only wearing new things, dry cleaning tags, which is a completely not regulated part of this industry. Like I know cotton clothes that today have dry cleaning tags on them, and I don't understand why companies and designers can't take ownership of owning the coloring process and the embroidery processes to make something. Like that's design intelligence. It's not just what looks good aesthetically. It's what's produced to reduce footprint in multiple ways. So it's not just a person who's not repeating. The designer is equally responsible as the person who's not repeating. So there are too many, like I said, layers to this conversation. It just depends on what we're speaking to. But just a few points to add to that.
On that note, I bring this to a close. And I hope this event helped you with a lot more questions that you came up with, because that's the whole point, to get you to think. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody on the panel. It has been a pleasure. I enjoyed it.